Could a businessman, a rich man, achieve sainthood? It sounds difficult because in 20 centuries, the Church hasn't canonized a single one.
Yo conocí gente rica.
I've met rich people, and I'm carrying forward here the cause for the beatification of a rich businessman, an Argentine, Enrique Shaw, who was rich, but he was a saint. A person can have money. God gives it to him for him to administer well, and this man administered it well, not in a patronizing way, but in a way that helped those who needed his help grow.
Enrique Shaw, God's businessman. Enrique Shaw was born on February 26, 1921, in Paris, son of Sarah Torkinst and Alejandro Shaw. He also had a brother who was 2 years older. 2 months after his birth, the family returned to the city of Buenos Aires. At 4 years old, Enrique received a terrible blow. Sarah, his mother, died. The pain her absence caused would be great, but she left a valuable spiritual legacy. She made her husband promise that their children would receive a good religious upbringing. Father Goya Producciones fulfills this duty and takes care of the brothers' Christian education. Enrique takes his first communion in 1928 at the Basilica of the Holy Sacrament, and his faith grows day by day. His father is constantly traveling for work. The brothers are left in the care of their aunts and their governess. They provide them with care and comfort, trying to fill the void left by their mother. Little Enrique has a huge smile that seems to drive all sadness away. With time, he grows up with hard work and discipline. He's a model student at the De La Salle School, and he's always first on the honor roll. Always eager to strengthen his character, at just 14 years old, he decides to leave his school and finish his studies at the Naval Academy. Enrique was the youngest cadet in his group at the Naval Academy of Rio Santiago. That didn't stop him from being among the best, and he was promoted to an officer cadet in 1939. Reading was his greatest ally during the long journeys across the sea. He spent his free time reading about diverse subjects. The books contributed to the formation of his way of thinking, which some define as Christian humanist. During those years, he also began to develop a habit he would never abandon: writing. His diary, notebooks, manuscripts, and notes from his youth are faithful testimonies to his reading, reflections, and experiences. In these pages, he tells us about a crucial moment in his life, reading a book about the social teaching of the Church, which compels him toward what he himself called his conversion.
The day I turned 20, I asked God to produce in me the fruits that He desires, to make me conscious of my sins and convert me completely and decidedly. My religious ideas have been consolidated into 2 points. The first, understanding that I am a sinner, and the second, that I might move decidedly toward God.
The young sailor had achieved many things in his life, but he felt like something was missing. Could it be love? That's when he met Cecilia Bunge. Cecilia was the same age, and they shared, among other things, a profound religious faith, and having lost their mothers at a very young age. She was an only child, and she lived with her father, the renowned architect Jorge Bunge. The girl had received an excellent education. She studied fine arts, and she was also a catechist. But marine life wasn't easy. The constant journeys kept them apart, and they maintained their relationship through letters. Cecilita, as he affectionately called her, like any young lady in love, anxiously awaited letters from her beloved. Enrique used to write frequently about God and about religion in general. This attitude made Cecilia think that perhaps her boyfriend was heading towards priesthood rather than marriage. When he realized the confusion, he confirmed his unconditional love to her and that he never stopped thinking of her. After 2 years of courtship, on October 23, 1943, they were married at the Bunge's country house, La Cecilia, in the province of Buenos Aires.
Getting married means no longer belonging to yourself. The growth of love is not automatic. You have to recreate it. A man doesn't take a wife. He gives himself to her. And there is no doubt that that woman, without whom I can no longer imagine my existence, is and will be my Cecilia.
Enrique doesn't live his religion alone. Preaching means bringing your fellow man closer to God, using intelligence and respecting his freedom. As an officer, he could be seen sitting during free time teaching the catechism to the sailors. He also took care of organizing Sunday Mass at the Puerto Belgrano base. The start wasn't encouraging, but with perseverance, he got a lot of people to attend Mass and receive communion. The young officer wanted to spread the gospel by living it. Far from imposing discipline with harsh punishments, he instructed his subordinates with a firm hand, fair words, and good manners. The testimonies agree that he became very respected and loved by everyone under his command. When his first son was born, Enrique felt the need to spend more time with his family. He also wanted to widen his field of ministry outside the environment of the Navy. So, he decided to leave his military career. But that's not an option yet, because the world is at war. He's ordered to ship out and patrol the Argentine coast, and he has to postpone his decision. In 1945, the authorities sent him to Chicago State University to broaden his studies, and Cecilia and their young son accompanied him. During the trip, he met with two priests from the Young Catholic Workers. Through their conversations, he discovered the importance of bringing Christ's message to the workers. This idea would stay in his memory and mark the path to follow for the rest of his life. When he arrived in New York, he received the news that the war was over. Enrique thought that in times of peace it wasn't necessary for him to stay in the Navy, and he was free to follow his calling. He headed to Washington, and from there he sent his request for discharge as frigate lieutenant and made arrangements to return the money for the trip. He left years of an excellent career and a bright future behind to start a new life. An uncle of Cecilia's, Leon Forvel, offered him a job in the family glassworks business, Crystal Arias Rigolo. Enrique wanted to start working as just another operator. That way, he could gain a deep understanding of their spiritual and economic difficulties, so he could spread the word of God among them. But a wise priest with proven apostolic experience convinced him that he would help the workers much more as a businessman. That way, he could combat the scourge of unemployment while promoting a true social conscience for the working man among the management. At Leon Forvel's request, Enrique spent a year in the United States, in Corning, studying the management and technical procedures at Corning Glasswork. In 1946, he started working at Crystal Arias Rigolo. His first job was as general plant assistant, and he would become a delegated administrator, a position equivalent to a general manager of today. During his time in the Navy, he had learned that it was vital to work in an ordered and methodical environment, but always in a happy and relaxed climate. Seeing a boss who smiled seemed very strange to them, and they were right. Enrique Shaw was very different from any other boss they'd known. He knew how to patiently listen to what was happening to each of his employees, and he gave them advice, almost like a father would his children. He would do the rounds around the plant to get detailed word from the operators on production. And he used to give a warm welcome to newcomers. Enrique was determined to maintain a smiling atmosphere that brought out the best in people. He was heard saying that someone who constantly scolded could never be a good manager. One fact speaks for itself. One day, he found out the employees in an office were smothered by the intense heat, as air conditioning had yet to be installed. To everyone's pleasant surprise, he soon appeared with 2 kilos of ice cream for them all to enjoy. These small gestures of kindness and consideration make him a great in the eyes of his people.
I want to make sure the lazy are motivated. the discouraged enthused, and the weak sustained. The company man has to be an entrepreneur, inspiring, diligent, joyful, and only has the right to reprimand when he also knows how to praise.
He often felt alone and misunderstood. With his arrival at Rigolo, the old management had stopped showing up, tired of the continuous confrontations and problems. Some members of the board prioritized the benefits of the company, and that focus caused friction. Enrique thought that each management task was an opportunity for service, so he was determined to humanize the factory. To do so, he would consider broader aspects than merely economic ones. His goal was to tear down the walls separating the bosses from the workers, taking everyone's well-being into account. He didn't quit in the face of adversity. With devotion, he turned to his permanent partner, the Virgin Mary, for help. Coming home after a hard day of work was a real party. Enrique loved his children dearly and showed them so all the time, something uncommon for fathers at the time. If there was scoldings, there was also praise, and above all, open ears to listen. He knew better than anyone of the loneliness of childhood. So he enjoyed the hustle and bustle of the family he formed with Cecilia and their 9 children. That school of joy, love, and service, where the important thing was that the kids always felt loved. Hands off, play nice was the rule so they could play freely but with respect and without causing trouble. He also took care of teaching them to live with a sincere Christian spirit and not with a religious life based on formalities and appearances. They all went to Mass together on Sundays, and during the celebration, they would explain the priest's words to them. Friends and acquaintances would happily remember the joy the Shaw family transmitted in those times. Perhaps because one of their most important values came from the words of Pope Pius XII, "The family that prays together stays together." Shaw was interested in getting to know each of the workers, who, as he said, offered their talents for the management to make bear fruit. He greeted everyone and took the time to talk with them about different subjects. And he took notes on their conversations and any problems that were bothering them. Whenever he left the country, he let everyone know, and the word spread quickly amongst the factory employees, because he offered to bring things they couldn't get in Argentina. Requests ranged from medications to little trinkets, like cigarette-shaped lighters. When he returned, he would hand out the items amidst smiles and expressions of gratitude. He almost never charged them the full amount. Enrique was aware that the families of the workers might never travel abroad, and that's why he made an effort to get everything they asked for, even items that weren't vital. To him, the sweet face of a child was the best way to start a workday. He would sometimes be late getting into work to show the neighborhood kids a good time. They would anxiously await that fun man who would take them for a ride on his motorcycle. In the 50s, relations were tense between businessmen and unions. Enrique, on the other hand, thought he had to listen to them attentively and understand them. They say that some union representatives visited his house once. He explained to his children that these men were very important in the factory. Sometimes businessmen are unjust, and they make them reflect on this so they can come to an agreement. For Enrique Shaw, the company, in addition to being a cell in economic life, should be a community of life. Already in his first acts as a young business manager, he had shown that this common union went beyond work. Responding to a request from Pope Pius XII, Enrique and a group of Argentine businessmen organized a shipment of clothing and supplies to help the countries devastated by the war. Later, Shaw kept meeting with his colleagues, and they formed a group to encourage them to bring the kingdom of God to the corporate and business world. That's what Monsignor Hillenbrand, the priest who encouraged him to work as a businessman, had suggested he should do. Finally, on December 3, 1952, they found the ACTE, the Catholic Association of Business Executives, with a consultation from Father Manuel Moledo. Its first president was Enrique Shaw. After a time, the ACTE was integrated into UNIAPAC, the International Christian Union of Business Executives, an organism that also worked for the advancement of workers. ACTE's mission was to help business executives to live in a manner compatible with their entrepreneurial vocation and their Christian faith. How? Through company reflection and analysis based on the principles of the social teaching of the Church, as well as through action according to their social commitment. In 1961, its name was changed to the Christian Association of Business Executives, just as Enrique had wanted since its founding. Enrique always considered the company as an instrument of sanctification, home of human relations, and a school of prudence and responsibility. Enrique Shaw was a member of Catholic Action Argentina. Faithful to his style of committing himself to everything he did, he participated very actively in it. In October 1961, the bishopric named him president of the Men's Association of Catholic Action Argentina. In 1955, the confrontation between the government and the Catholic Church reached a high point. Enrique was detained in a police station along with other lay directors of Catholic Action, unjustly accused of disturbing the peace. They say he refused to sleep on a mattress his family brought for him until all his cellmates had one just like it. And he got his way. Out of reach, Cecilia couldn't see him, but his children could, and he welcomed them with hugs and smiles. That day, he calmly asked them to tell their mother not to worry, that he was fine, and they'd all be together again soon. After those days of imprisonment, he was heard at Rigolo saying he didn't take this as a traumatic experience or an injustice, but more like
a badge of honor sent to me by the Virgin that I will hold in my heart.
Enrique said that God didn't demand success from him, but that he put his heart into what he was called upon to do. He diversified his activities, integrating different companies and institutions, and supporting cultural initiatives. For example, he lent his spiritual and material support to the foundation of the Catholic University of Argentina, where in 1958 he was named treasurer of the first administrative board. His profound knowledge of the social teaching of the Church allowed him to become the head editor of the Collective Pastoral of the Argentine Episcopates on the Promotion and Responsibility of the Workers from the year 1956. This document, signed by the bishops, summed up in accessible language the Church's opinion on the social question. Along with colleagues from the ACTE, he contributed to the development of the National Law of Family Allocations. The proposal was to help make sure everyone who did similar work enjoyed the same quality of life. Enrique thought it was fair that when a family gave children to the country, they could take care of them and raise them right. They finally managed to get the bill approved as a law in 1957. His family life was peaceful and harmonious. In late 1957, Enrique returned from an educational trip to Harvard. At the time, and almost as an offhand comment, he mentioned to Cecilia that he had a spot on his thumb that wouldn't come off, that looked like ink. As the spot didn't go away, he went to see his doctor. When he left the consultation, he already knew very clearly what was going to happen. The biopsy revealed that the spot was a malignant melanoma. He was often heard saying something very simple and profound about it.
Whatever God wills it to be.
They had to immediately amputate a part of his thumb. The very day of the operation, he went to an ACTE meeting apologizing for being late. He told his partners that he was late because he had undergone an operation on his hand because he had cancer. And he responded to the blank faces by insisting on going on with the meeting as if nothing had happened. Everything had to go on as normal. In these circumstances, Enrique was willing to go wherever God would take him, acting with love, calm, cordiality, and joy, managing to reflect on God's love for all men. During his illness, he continued with his work, which he took as a service to humanity and as a bond of union among men. Many turned to him to ask for some favor or for different needs, and he was always willing to help. He also helped out with his own means with the loans the Benefit Society of Rigolo gave. And if he heard that an employee was building a house, he would increase the amount of the annual bonuses the company gave out just to contribute. As he would say, for one more window.
Unemployment is more of a moral malady than an economic malady that fills homes with anguish, fear, and uncertainty. No Christian, no good man can remain indifferent to the existence of such suffering.
These words were part of a memo written by Enrique Shaw in 1959 that he passed out to the personnel at the glassworks. While he was heading Rigolo, he also looked for a way to avoid letting people go. Firing people from the factory was never the first option when there wasn't enough work to go around. If production decreased, the workers were assigned the smaller tasks until the situation improved. There was a time when the carpentry sector became unprofitable, so he proposed the employees leave their jobs according to all the legal requirements, and he would help them form their own cooperative to provide the company with the materials it needed. Subcontracting was new at the time, but it was widely accepted, and everyone came out ahead. In 1961, Argentina went through a terrible economic crisis. This led to a drop in the demand for Crystal Arias Rigolo products. To save costs, Corning Glass, which was their majority shareholder, decided to fire hundreds of workers. Holding to his principle of harmonizing respect for the development of people with the profitability of the company, Enrique Shaw questioned that decision. So he didn't hesitate to travel to Corning Glass's central office in the United States. There, an important director listened attentively as Enrique explained using solid arguments why it wasn't necessary to fire anybody. He also warns that if they insist on firing those employees, he'll immediately present his resignation. In the end, the American company changed their mind. The situation soon improved, and the shareholders recognized that the Argentine director had been right. Even today, the families and descendants of those workers are thankful that there was a businessman who would defend with facts the idea that in a just and well-organized society, there must be no place for unemployment. But the beloved boss Enrique Shaw was very sick and needed help. That man who was able to break down the wall that separated workers from businessmen received blood from almost 200 people. They were mostly workers. The doctors were amazed at the impressive number of donors. The end was very close, and when he said goodbye to his family at Rigolo, he didn't say goodbye, but thanks. Thanks to his workmates who had given him something as vital as blood itself. and like a man who fulfills an intimate wish put off for so many years, that day he told the workers,
I can tell you right now, almost all the blood running through my veins is the blood of a worker. I identify more than ever with you, whom I have always loved and held in my thoughts, not just as simple executors, but also as executives.
And so left this man who had been determined to be what others needed him to be, and of whom it was certainly deserved, said, just as it was said of Saint Catherine of Siena, nobody approached him without leaving better off. During his illness, he was never heard complaining. He even offered his suffering for the conversion of his father to the Catholic faith. And he was very happy when he found out he was going to take communion. He was in very bad shape, and yet he confronted the intense pains as if he wasn't dying, with integrity and a smile.
God is telling me, come. And I answer, Lord, your servant hears you. To which he answers, I have called you because you are mine. And then everything disappears, and all that's left is God and me.
On August 27, 1962, the day of the 37th anniversary of the death of his mother, Enrique died in Buenos Aires. He was only 41 years old. Enrique left a lot of beautiful memories with those who knew him. His material detachment was so great that Cecilia had a hard time finding something of his that she could give to her children to remember him by. His few belongings were those of everyday use, and he didn't even bother keeping any locked drawers in his house. No object could be important, because to him, things are at our service. We are not at their service. Some Brigalow employees came to offer his wife their condolences. They also wanted to return the money he had lent them. In these cases, Enrique made it clear that God was going to return what he loaned them in one way or another. Cecilia decided that those loans should be considered donations. The 50th anniversary of his death was commemorated through different events. His life is now the subject of study, evocations, and homages. A street in the city of Pinamar is named after him. In 1996, Cardinal Jorge Mejia, who was his friend and who assisted him as a priest, proposed that work begin in the cause for Enrique's canonization as a model businessman and father of a Christian family. In 2005, the cause was opened in the Curia of Buenos Aires. On September 19, 2013, the Archbishop of Buenos Aires, Monsignor Mario Poli, presided over the closure of the diocesan stage of the canonization process. It took place in the St. Augustine Auditorium at the Catholic University of Argentina. More than 13,000 pages of documentation were sealed and boxed up to be sent to Rome to the Congregation for the Causes of Saints, and the process is still ongoing. For Enrique, sainthood doesn't consist of doing more and more difficult things, but in doing them with more and more love. He was an exemplary son, friend, teacher, father, and husband, a model of humility and charity. A true pioneer of corporate social responsibility, he showed a profound consistency between his words and his actions. He was dedicated to the ideal of building a society that cared about solidarity, giving, and service. A believer who held the Virgin Mary as a partner and mother. From her hand, he became the boss who knocked down walls to talk with the workers as equals. They themselves said of him that if there were more businessmen like him, the world would be a very different place today. A man who preferred sensitivity over indifference, a smile over distance, and courage in the face of adversity. Enrique Shaw was one of those essential people who, through his example, shows us that life is worth living when it becomes an act of love for your fellow man.
It's difficult in the modern world, but he didn't care about what people will say. He showed his love to Jesus. He prayed to him. He went to Mass with great devotion, and he explained it to the kids. He received Jesus and prayed and talked to the Virgin, and he made the kids pray a Hail, Holy Queen.
Man, it's hot. Some ice cream would be great. You saw him disappear, and then he showed up with a carton enormous like this of those Laponia ice creams, which were like little squares, and he started handing them out at all desks. People came who were at the workshops with grease on their hands, greased up, and how are you? He put up his hand in friendliness and kindness. Oh no, sir, my hands are greasy. But no, my friend, he hugged them. He took his arm. More than 200 people went to donate blood. They donated blood and came to work.
And then he had given me a raise, which compared to what I'd earned the year before was quite considerable. And he added, with a smile, for one more window. At the time, Rigolo had about 3,600 workers, more or less, and when he went to the largest factory in Berazategui, he went in and a lot of people said hello to him as he walked by. And he usually greeted them by name and asked about Juanito, their son, and if he was doing better, for example, or how it was going. He knew about everyone's problems. Everyone was in a bedroom, playing, attacking each other with pillows. And I came in, and I got hit with a pillow too. But I saw that attitude of the young father playing with his children. What struck me about Enrique? I'd say three things. First, his sense of social justice, a great social sensitivity. The second thing that struck me was his sense of humility and service. The last, the consistency of his conduct. Enrique really practiced what he preached.
I think that today, if 50% of businessmen, or less than 50%, were like Enrique Shaw, the things that are happening wouldn't be happening.